This is the College Football Connection Podcast with Alvin Reed, Bradford Bruns, and Marty Jenkins on 101 ESPN.
And just like that, another would-be signature victory for Eli Drinkwitz and his Missouri Tigers goes tumbling down the tubes. Good Saturday evening, everybody. Bradford Bruns back with you. We are live. We indeed have returned from Columbia, Missouri, where today the Tigers falling at the hands of number 8 Alabama, 27-24. Your final. We came straight from Faurot Field for the purpose of recording this College Football Connection instant analysis presentation for you only on 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, plus 101ESPN.com, in the hopes of bringing a bit of a recap, definitely, hopefully, some perspective as well. Because, look, we were all well aware in the audience, right, in the STL, in mid-Missouri, everywhere else, of the massive implications stemming from this outcome, okay? Over the last couple of games, Alabama, always a perennial brand, right? Always a perennial powerhouse, had seemingly righted that ship against Georgia and Vanderbilt in succession. That week one letdown against Florida State, a distant memory, okay, at this point. And yet, if you were Missouri, entering the festivities this morning, 11 a.m. kickoff, SEC Nation is back in the building, all of that pomp and circumstance. Again, you were undefeated entering this matchup. You had a chance to get to 6-0 and against Alabama at that, to beat, potentially, the Crimson Tide for the first time in a game since all the way back in 1975. And yet, what happened at the end of the afternoon couldn't have envisioned the way in which this one would ultimately unfold, because even though it goes down in the box score as the final of 27-24, at times it didn't feel quite as close as that, even though you had a bang-up start to the proceedings. Alabama obviously deferring that opening kickoff. Missouri takes the football, promptly marches it downfield, 6 plays, 78 yards, culminating in the 26-yard touchdown reception by the tight end, Brett Norfleet. Perbula had a trio of nice runs. You were already integrating Ahmad Hardy into the festivities, and yet from there, things became incredibly puzzling in a lot of different respects. We'll get to Hardy here in just a moment, but let's talk about the ensuing drive, okay, defensively for Mizzou, which contained any number of the miscues, the mental gaffes that would really mark this day symbolically in a lot of different capacities. Zion Young, your senior captain, your pillar, your linchpin there on the defensive line. He is flagged twice, once for unsportsmanlike conduct, and then as Alabama was already encroaching upon red zone territory, he was drawn over by the sensational junior signal caller Ty Simpson. Alabama proceeds to put that touchdown on the board. It's 7-7, and then thereafter, Missouri's offense, it proceeds to go 3 and out on 2 of the next 3 drives, and that is to take nothing away, okay, from the Alabama defensive unit on this day. Did a great job of being able to fluster Bo Perbula. He was certainly less precise, less accurate than we have seen for the better part of 2025. But what really caused me a lot of skepticism, and something for which Eli Drinkwitz had to answer after the game, after the fact, in the defensive meeting room there at the University of Missouri. As this game progressed into the second half, as you were able to close that deficit to 17-10 at the half, thanks to a last-second field goal by Robert Meyer, the true freshman kicker from 35 yards out, you were left wondering why the leading rusher in all of the land, the guy on pace prior to this game for 1,900 yards on the campaign, Ahmad Hardy, was not getting involved to the degree that you had expected. Yes, I know he had to visit the tent at some point, had to go to the locker room. That actually was the case for a couple of different Missouri standouts during the course of this game. But when all was said and done, and you have a chance to edge your way back into the festivities in the fourth quarter, then you look down at the end of the day and you see that Ahmad Hardy has only amassed 12 carries, whereas Perbula, who struggled mightily at times, yes, 28 attempts through the air. A lot of things didn't compute, guys, on this afternoon in mid-Missouri. A lot of things did not compute, and frankly, there were a lot of different reasons, a lot of different things that you could nitpick as to exactly why this game didn't turn out ultimately in favor of Mizzou. Okay, a couple of different things, apart from just the mental mistakes that were there from Zion Young. Now, he stormed back, in a manner of speaking, in the second half. He was able to generate a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterback. He and Damon Wilson II, they have been your guys up front all season long. Josiah Trotter, he had another exceptional game in the tackling department with 8 along those lines. It was fascinating because as we kind of hop all over the place here on this edition of the CFC, the secondary, the area, the unit, the positional group about which you had the greatest number of questions and quandaries, it really held up remarkably well, I would venture to say, against Alabama. Yes, did Ty Simpson ultimately get into the end zone from a passing standpoint several different times? He did. But as Dalen Carnell told us after the game as well, Missouri was able to limit that junior signal caller to 200 yards. He actually had not thrown for a lower number so far this season. So the secondary, whether you were talking about Carnell, whether you were talking about Dre Norwood back in a starting role after missing the UMass game, even Stephen Hall, as well as Toriano Pride Jr., they certainly carried the freight in that department. Ryan Williams, the celebrated sophomore for Alabama, he was a complete non-factor. I understand that he carried the probable designation entering this ballgame, but one target of which to speak, Bernard Horton, held relatively in check as well. Heck, your run defense, it was stout as per usual. You surrendered fewer than 4 yards per carry to Alabama today, for all intents and purposes. Jam Miller, he was okay prior to leaving with that concussion later in the second half, but that is a unit on which you can consistently rely. McClellan, etc., you guys get the drill by now. But what was absolutely puzzling and absolutely bewildering, some of the game management decisions down the stretch, some of the occasions on which Kirby Moore put the ball in the air, but not actually testing the Alabama secondary, which also has been vulnerable and susceptible to some big plays so far this season. It was not a good look either. Okay, I understand that Marquise Johnson definitely had reasons to be eternally, perpetually frustrated when you're held to 2 receptions, when consistently you are not in sync with Bo Pribula. That also could have applied to Kevin Coleman Jr. See, 1 reception on the day. But some of the body language, the manifestation of the behavior outwardly, not just on the sideline, everywhere on the field, I think to some degree, I firmly believe that it rubbed off on the remainder of the team, and it just is a poor look for a team that had more than a week to be able to prepare for this all-important opportunity. You still have a lot of things. Guys, don't get me wrong. You still have a lot here on the table going into that matchup next Saturday night. The Plains, Auburn, right? And we'll say nothing right now about the way in which the Tigers, those Tigers, are actually looking against Georgia on this evening. What another crazy week, right, around the college football grid. But from Johnson's antics to Zion Young feeling himself, so to speak, in the early portion of this game, it smacked of a team that was not totally ready to embrace the challenge as it stood on the playing surface, on the playing field. And as a result, Missouri ultimately succumbing by that final of 27-24. A couple of good takeaways from this game, however, the freshman, the true freshman at that, Donovan Olubade. In the fourth quarter alone, and heaven knows as to why he wasn't targeted more frequently, why he wasn't on the field, frankly, for long stretches until that point. He winds up as your leading receiver with more than 50 yards. He records his first touchdown as a collegiate player as well. But to bring it all full circle, on a day when Bo Pribula, through scramble mode predominantly, was your leading rusher, that's not going to get it done. When Donovan Olubade, as talented as the freshman is your leading receiver, that's not going to get it done. And when you add all these different factors together, and we will bring you audio from the head coach Eli Drinkwitz, from some of the luminaries as far as the players were concerned in the defensive meeting room, as well as we go along during the week on 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. To say that this one was disappointing, that would be a huge understatement because you had the opportunity to finally apply the stranglehold and come up in a big spot, whereas in years past you had failed. But today, Missouri's going to have to live with that and look to flip the page, flip the script as it gets back to business and back to work. Much needed preparation for that contest ahead against Hugh Freeze and company. And if you thought today that Pribula and some of the underclassmen, for that matter, on the Missouri side struggled, wait until you actually get a taste of that road environment as finally, at long last, MU must head on the road for the first time in 2025.